Meanwhile, the United States reportedly proposing a UN Security Council draft resolution which calls for a temporary ceasefire in the Israeli-Hamas war, while warning against an Israeli ground invasion of Rafah. Israel is vowing to launch its Rafah offensive by Ramadan. Now, Ramadan begins on March 10th. If the remaining hostages are not released by Hamas, Israel says it will move forward. Meanwhile, Iranian-backed Houthi rebels are claiming they shot down a U.S. Reaper drone yesterday. That happened off the coast of Yemen. The Pentagon says it's investigating the cause of the crash. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, always a pleasure. Good to see you this morning. And what is your reaction to this UN forced peace deal, or perhaps a stoppage, even if temporary, of the fighting?
Well, yeah, certainly. The Israelis themselves have been participating in negotiations looking for some kind of a ceasefire and get all the hostages released. I think the resolution that the U.S. proposing, actually stating their opposition to military operations in Rafah, is something the Israelis would take exception to. They absolutely believe that they have to complete their operations in Rafah if they're going to destroy Hamas. Certainly the issue at hand is the presence of over 1 million civilians, many of whom don't live in Rafah but are in temporary shelters in and around Rafah, and trying to move them away from the actual battle zone that takes place. That's quite a challenge, and still try to protect civilian life. So that really is at the heart of the issue here, and certainly the release of the hostages. The other thing, I think there is another piece to it that the Israelis would take exception to, and that is, in the proposal, the United States states that they do not want anybody to take territory away from Gaza, even if it's just on a temporary basis, to provide an extended security zone. That's something the Israelis certainly are doing as a result of October the 7th. They recognize they have to improve security operations on their side of the border. Obviously, there was significant failure there. And also, they want to have visibility on the Gazan side of the border and not have buildings right up to the border. So they want to remove some of those so that their military forces are able to see on the other side of the border in case there's another approach in terms of a reattack. So there's some issues there that the Israelis will not like. But look at what the Israelis are doing. I mean, the fact that they're saying they're going to begin this assault on 10 March, Maria, the beginning of Ramadan, and obviously announcing that, they really want to force negotiations here and get the hostages back. That, I believe, is the leverage they're using by the threat of an attack.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and that's what we all want. We want those hostages released, but it strikes me that the U.S. is trying to get Israel to change its stance to do a ceasefire, even as the Houthi rebels are attacking us every day. OK, and like the media, it completely ignores the fact that the Houthis have been attacking our troops in the Middle East now since October 17th. And yet you have a CNN reporter here appearing to try to shift the blame onto House Republicans for Alexei Navalny's death, for not sending money to Ukraine yet. Watch this.
Mr. President, would you go as far as to say that Alexei Navalny's blood is on the hands of House Republicans right now?
I wouldn't use that term. They're making a big mistake not responding.
Navalny's wife said yesterday that Russian President Putin killed her husband. She vows to continue his anti-corruption work. General, your thoughts on this and how suddenly the Democrats are trying to shift the blame onto Republicans because of this stalemate over aid?
Yeah, well, I don't think that has anything to do with Navalny's death. I mean, frankly, the upcoming election in March that involves, obviously, Putin being extended for another 6 years likely has more to do with it than anything else.
Yeah,
and this is a pattern of behavior of Putin. I mean, he's gotten rid of every opposition leader he has. And I actually believe that what's really taken place here, it certainly reveals, Maria, Putin's insecurity and paranoia. He fears opposition from the people. That's why he doesn't want a charismatic leader like Navalny out there doing what he had done in the past. He had sort of a magnetic force on the population when he started to expose the corruption that's widespread inside the Russian government and extravagant lifestyle that Putin was leading himself. I think the actual punishment for Putin here, more than anything else, is to stop him in Ukraine, defeat this second mobilization of forces that he's put together, destroy that military force. He's now spending, as a percentage of GDP, 9% of his budget, which is getting close to what they did during World War II.
Wow.
He's on a war footing economy at the sacrifice of his own people. So if we force Putin to humiliate him and lose that war in front of his own people, and then after all the sacrifice and the suffering that they're going through, and they have nothing to show for it, and Russia loses the war, I can't imagine anything more than that would put pressure on Putin. That is the best answer here.
Yeah.
Stop Putin and punish him for what he's done.
Similar story playing out in China because Xi Jinping also worried about the people and about the potential for, upset there. China's foreign minister told his Ukrainian counterpart at the Munich Security Conference last weekend that Beijing is not selling lethal weapons to Russia. He claimed that it did not sell weapons to, quote, conflict areas or conflict parties, General. I think we know otherwise, and we know that China has been supporting Russia, along with Iran. Your thoughts?
Yeah. My sources told me a couple of weeks ago that China's support for Russia has exceeded their expectations based on recent reports that are now, in a general sense, out in the media. Obviously, our congressmen on the intel committees and others have access to what they're doing. From what I understand, generally speaking, they're not providing the weapon itself, but they're providing all the pieces and parts and everything that supports the development of weapon systems in there. And they're certainly buying up all the oil and gas that they can to support Putin's economy. And we know full well the sanctions haven't taken anywhere near the effect that people thought they would. So here we are here. And I think it's the right move to make. The EU has already stated they fully intend to sanction China for the support they're providing to Russia. The United States has got to get on board. It looks like we're moving in that direction. Good policy here. Let's get on with it. The fact is that China can be punished here and get their attention, given the doldrums of their economy and the serious implications it's having as they're trying to go forward. They don't want any more pressure on that economy, and this will put some additional pressure. We'll pay a price for it, certainly, and that's one of the reasons why we've held back likely in the past, because of the interdependence we have on each other's economy. But this is the right move, Maria.
All right. We'll be watching that, of course. General, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for weighing in on all of that.